Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for the proceedings, where we will have the launch of the results of the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey. As we get started, we'll invite Mr. Shernell Thompson, the Deputy Director with responsibility for financial sector stability, to lead us off in prayer. We invite the Deputy Director to lead us in prayer. Mr. Thompson is joining us virtually, so we'll just give him a few minutes. Shernell, you're muted at the moment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, O Lord, for bringing us together this morning to launch this report on financial literacy and financial inclusion in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. We thank you, God, for the efforts that have gone into conducting this survey and into preparing this report and the event here today. We ask, O Lord, that you help us, O Father, as we go ahead with this information to use it in good stead to the furtherance of the people of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, to guide them, to uplift them, and to enlighten them, but also, their Father, to use this information to guide our policymakers as they make decisions in the best interests of the people. We give you thanks, O Father, for all the blessings that you bestowed upon us, and we ask your guidance over this session today, and may it be in good stead and in keeping with you. For Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Shernell. And so again, I say welcome to everyone. I am Teresa Smith, the Director in the Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics Department here at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And we want to welcome you, as I said, to this very special occasion. We have with us persons here at the ECCB headquarters, and we are also joined in our agency offices, our ECCU member country agency offices, and there are stakeholders who are there who we also welcome to this event. Allow me, however, to just make some brief introductions. We have at the head our governor, Timothy N.J. Antoine, who we'll hear from a little later, as well as Dr. Leah Siheli, who is our data specialist in the Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics Department here at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We also want to recognize, in particular, our Chief Director Policy, who is a member of the executive of the bank, Tracy Polias, and we welcome you to this session. We recognize as well some of our partners, in particular the OECS Commission. We will hear from Dr. Jules in a minute, who is the Director General. But we also want to recognize Mr. Imran Williams, who is the project manager for the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project at the OECS, which the OECS Commission is coordinating, and so we welcome him. We also welcome our World Bank partners who have joined us virtually, as well as the executive team or the Data Point Solutions firm who executed the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey. We will hear from them a little later as well, in particular the Chief Executive Officer. We also want to acknowledge in our presence the team from the United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF. We have two colleagues who have joined us for the launch, and they will be with us during the week when we continue and develop a strategy, at least have a framework, a working session to develop that framework for a financial inclusion strategy, which we will hear more about as we continue. We also want to welcome at this time Ms. Nikira Nichols, who is the former Miss St. Kitts. She was Miss St. Kitts and Nevis for 2022, and we have had the pleasure of working with Ms. Nichols over the past year, and we will hear more from her during this launch. You will see her and you will hear from her. Of course, we also welcome the management and team of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank who are with us today. Without any further ado, we want to take this opportunity to introduce you to why we are actually here, and we will allow now for an introductory video to set the tone.
Do the people of the ECC have the information? Do the people of the ECCU have the information, skills, and tools they need to make good financial decisions? Can they access the financial tools and products that they need? These are some of the questions that the Financial Literacy and the Financial Inclusion Survey help to answer.
The Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey forms part of the Digital Financial Services component of the World Bank-funded Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, an exciting collaboration between the OECS Commission and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as a technical lead institution. Through the survey, the partners were able to get real information about the financial behavior, attitudes, and knowledge of persons in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, and understand how aware they were of and how easily they could access financial products and services. The goal is to use the data collected from the survey to create a financial inclusion strategy that will help to transform citizens' awareness and access to financial products and services, and to measure progress towards financial literacy and inclusion. The OECS and the ECCB will work with member states and partners to get this done.
Visit our website or scan the QR code for more information about the Financial Literacy and the Financial Inclusion Survey.
Thank you. So as we continue this morning, we are going to just basically keep echoing the sentiments that you've seen in this introduction. And as we build on that, and as we learn more about the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey, we are going to invite the Governor of the ECCB, Mr. Timothy N.J. Antoine, to give some opening remarks. Governor Antoine.
Thank you very much, Madam Master of Ceremonies, members of the Monetary Council, members of the ECCB Board of Directors, Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the OECS Commission, Ms. Delia Barunchik, Director of the Caribbean, for the Caribbean at the World Bank, and other World Bank colleagues, Ms. Helen Gradstein, and colleagues from the United Nations Capital Development Fund, Deputy Governor Dr. Valda Henry, Chief Director Policy, Ms. Tracy Poulias, Mr. Teresa Smith, Director of Research, Statistics, and Data Analytics Department at ECCB, heads of department, management staff. I'd like to specially recognize our project management team, led by Project Manager Mr. Imran Williams, Mr. Edwin St. Catherine, CEO of Data Point. Also want to recognize Mrs. Gail Gray Phillip, Head of Global Campus St. Kitts and Nevis. I hope I got that rebranding right. One of our champions today, Ms. Nikira Nichols, other specially invited guests, colleagues, citizens, residents, and friends of the Currency Union. Greetings from your Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We work for you. And today we're pleased to share the results of our inaugural Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey. Now, we could not undertake this effort without partnerships, something that you will hear repeatedly throughout this discourse this morning. Consequently, at this juncture, I wish to highly commend all those associated with this survey, especially Mrs. Teresa Smith and Dr. Leah Seheli from the ECCB, and the entire project management unit at the OECS Commission, led by Mr. Imran Williams. I also want to recognize, of course, Ms. Karen Williams and her team, who lead a project unit in the Governor's Office, and all others who have played a part today. I especially acknowledge the technical and financial support of the World Bank under the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. Mr. Edwin St. Catherine, whose company executed the survey, and all persons who actually responded to the survey. I think there are over 7,000 of them, if I recall. So why did the ECCB commission this survey? Here at ECCB, financial inclusion is a strategic priority. So let's start there. It is a strategic priority. Financial inclusion refers to access to a range of financial services, including banking, credit, and insurance. Investopedia defines financial literacy as the ability to understand certain financial issues and use financial skills for personal financial management, such as budgeting and investing. In a region which boasts high levels of adult literacy, high 90s, financial literacy is lamentably low and lugubrious. How do we explain the following? Persons falling for scams offering prizes for competitions in which they were never registered. That happens more often than we like to believe. Persons engaging in higher purchases, ignorant or indifferent, to effective interest rates, with some as high as 35%. Yes, you heard me right, 35%. The proliferation of payday loans, which essentially means attempting to ride up on a down escalator. It's a veritable debt trap. Highly credentialed persons, multiple degrees, who are clueless when it comes to managing their personal finances. Only 1 in 25 persons, 4%, in the ECCU are invested in the regional and international capital markets. And yet, several persons are now taking high-risk investments in cryptos. Go figure. And then we have the situation of persons spending their limited income on wants while begging family, friends, and government for their needs. This latter behavior calls to mind a remarkable observation by the late Martin Luther King, who in the 1960s observed that black people were spending their limited money on their wants and then begging for their needs. I don't know, a lot has changed in the last 50 years. Against this backdrop, colleagues and friends, This survey is no ordinary survey and cannot be an academic exercise. Indeed, urgent action is needed to address financial literacy and inclusion in the ECCU. Now, over the past 21 years, the ECCB has sought to raise the level of financial literacy through our savings and investment courses, annual financial information month, now called FIM Festival, and in the past 7 years, through our weekly podcast, ECCB Connects. For these efforts, I wish to acknowledge the work of past and present ECCB staff and partners. You have helped many, but many more still need to be helped. In short, we need to scale up. I also wish to hail the pioneering work of Professor Anna Maria Lusardi through the Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center. In 2018, in the margins of the IMF World Bank annual meetings, I had the opportunity to see Professor Lusardi present the findings of the Standard & Poor's Financial Literacy Survey. The key finding then was that only 1 in 3 persons are financially literate. That encounter planted a seed in my mind, and I returned to the ECCU with a question and a determination to investigate the precise state of financial literacy in our currency union and do something about it. So here's my call to action. It's time for a strategy to scale up. We live in a shock-prone world. As a region, we are vulnerable to external shocks, and therefore we must be engaged in a lifelong pursuit of building resilience, including financial resilience. This is imperative for member countries, companies, and individuals. The survey reveals, and I won't say much because the big reveal is going to come shortly, that 1 in 2 persons in the ECCU are not financially resilient. So if I survey this room, I can safely conclude that some of us are not financially resilient. It's just statistics, and I don't cast any aspersions. We have a big challenge on our hands. When I think of financial literacy or financial resilience, I think of it as the capacity to absorb and bounce forward, not back, forward, from a shock, such as a health event, a job loss, an economic downturn, a natural disaster, or even a pandemic. And let's face it, there are persons in our currency union who have experienced all of these shocks over the last 5 years. I want to situate the work that we're doing this morning because we have to see people and see situations. This is not about numbers and statistics. Development is always about people. We have to see people even as we understand the numbers. And that's why I'm using these scenarios to crystallize in our minds, this is a people problem of which we must rally around to solve and to resolve. When it comes to our personal finances, we must hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And never forget, hope is not a strategy. I say that around here all the time. You guys know me. Every citizen should aspire to be financially literate and resilient. So armed with the results of this survey and seized with a sense of urgency, I now issue a clarion call for a coalition of partners, champions, institutionally and individually, to join the ECCB as we craft a strategy to scale up financial literacy and inclusion in the ECCU. That's why I'm happy to have Ms. Nichols, Nikira Nichols, join us, because we need young champions like herself across our currency union to bring the message, and to get something done. The mission of the ECCB is to advance the good of the people of the currency union, where they do not merely strive, but thrive. Where they do not merely strive, but thrive. Now, could you imagine what our currency union would be if every citizen were financially literate? Let's do that thought experiment for this moment. Could you imagine what this currency union would be if every citizen were financially literate, we would be thriving, I think. Could you imagine if every high school graduate in the ECCU were financially literate? To achieve this, we need our Ministries of Education and the Caribbean Examination Council to make this outcome a high priority. I am sick and tired of people with plenty subjects and no skills, including money management skills. That's a life skill. How could you graduate with 12, 14, 15, or 25 subjects and can't manage a checkbook? There's something wrong about that picture, folks, that does not sit easily or rest easily with me. And I hope there is some also righteous indignation, for want of a better term, at least a discomfort about this situation that would propel us to action, because that's what we want today. Could you imagine the improvement in mental health, financial resilience, and well-being if more of our people are capable of managing their personal finances? Some of you look a little depressed this morning. This is not intended to be depressing. We have to diagnose, and then we have to treat. This is the diagnosis and the call to action. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. Could you imagine? I finally got you to smile. That's great. Could you imagine if every workplace, starting with governments, the largest employers, offered financial wellness programs? I think there's a demand for that. So I'm pushing for that. That would be a new day and a giant stride in our big push for financial resilience and wealth creation. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a cause worth pursuing with huge potential dividends. And so I conclude with my often repeated anthem. As a region, we cannot change our history, nor can we change our geography. But collectively, we can and must elevate our development trajectory through innovation and collective action. Let's seize the moment and may God crown our efforts with resounding success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor, and I am sure that we can all appreciate the words that Governor just left with us. He has told us a lot, given us context, and given us that call to action. Without any further ado, I'm going to ask, or we will hear from the Director General, Dr. Didicus Jules, the Director General of the OECS Commission, that is. And we have been collaborating with the OECS Commission on this particular project, and so we welcome the presentation by Dr. Jules. It's a pre-recorded presentation, and so we listen for it at the moment.
Esteemed members of the Monetary Council, Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Mr. Timothy Antoine, Directors and staff of the bank, Directors of Finance and senior officials of the Ministries of Finance of the OECS, officials of the World Bank, project team on this component of the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, members of staff of the OECS Commission and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, members of the media and viewers. Today's event marks a very significant hallmark in the cooperation between the World Bank, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and the OECS Commission, because the study that is being launched today is an important and elemental step in our shared goal of financial inclusion. No serious strategy to achieve this can start based on assumptions. And this survey paints a picture of the empirical reality that we must transform. The Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, as we know, comprises 8 member countries, all of which use the Eastern Caribbean dollar, and are only one of 4 currency unions in the world. two of which are in Africa, the European Union and ourselves. And by the way, the European Union was set up after the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. This shared currency ties our economies together, making collective financial understanding even more crucial. When one of us thrives, we all benefit. Conversely, financial instability in one country can ripple through the entire union. Why is financial literacy important? Financial literacy isn't just about understanding money. It is about empowering ourselves to make informed decisions. It is the knowledge and skills to manage personal finances, understand savings, investing, borrowing, and much more. When a significant number of individuals lack these skills, our entire region can suffer from high debt levels, low savings, and missed economic opportunities. Without preempting the presentation of the survey results, the big picture is that financial literacy is low across the ECCU, with an average score of 12.2 out of 20 representing an acceptable level of understanding and use of finance. In today's financial climate, we see many instances of exploitation of the high levels of financial illiteracy. There are lending agencies and even some purportedly non-financial entities that are offering all kinds of credit, easy cash with hidden hooks of exorbitant interest rates that lures the average citizen into a debt purgatory. And this needs to be addressed. The current state of financial literacy in the region today. While the ECCU has made great strides in many areas, there remains room for growth in financial education. Many of our citizens still lack access to fundamental financial knowledge, a gap that we must address collectively. And this is not solely the responsibility of the central bank, but must also integrally involve our Council of Ministers of Education, for example, to align the education system to this responsibility. For instance, understanding the implications of high interest loans or the value of long-term saving can make a huge difference in an individual's financial trajectory. What are the opportunities for growth? Here's the good news. The digital age offers unprecedented opportunities to promote financial literacy. With the proliferation of smartphones and internet access across our member states, in fact, it is known that the cell phone penetration is more than 2 to 1 person in the OECS. With that penetration, we can leverage technology for financial education. Online courses, apps, and platforms can make financial knowledge accessible to all, from young students to elderly citizens. Moreover, partnerships between governments, NGOs, financial institutions can further financial education initiatives from school programs to community workshops. I want to end with a call to action to urge each of us, whether we are policymakers, educators, parents, or concerned citizens, to prioritize financial literacy. Let us advocate for financial education in our schools, support community programs, and continually seek to educate ourselves. At the OECS Commission, we are prepared and ready to collaborate with the ECCB, the credit unions, and other financial empowerment institutions, not just financial institutions, financial empowerment institutions, to build a comprehensive program for financial literacy and inclusion, from classroom material right up through to the establishment of school credit unions. To build a resilient and prosperous Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, we must ensure that our citizens are equipped with the financial skills and knowledge that they need. Financial literacy isn't just an individual responsibility, it is a collective imperative. Thank you, and let's work together to ensure a financially literate future for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Esteemed members of the Monetary Council,
Okay. We would like to thank Dr. Jules for those remarks. And similar to the governor's presentation, we have a call to action. And so we want to keep that in our minds as we listen to the results of the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey. Before we get to the actual results, we want to invite Mr. Nicholas Smith, the co-task team leader for the World Bank Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, to just give a few remarks. And this will also be done virtually, so we invite Mr. Smith to give his intervention now.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Fantastic. Well, good morning from Panama. My name is Nicholas Smith. I am the World Bank's financial sector focal point for our engagement with the ECCU and also the co-task team leader on the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. I first just wanted to extend my regards and greetings to the governor, national colleagues, ECCB colleagues, and to the UNCDF and others attending today. I also wanted to just give a personal thanks to the project team from Imran and those who executed the survey. It's a massive undertaking to undertake these types of surveys, and hats off to you all. What I think is really important about today is we have a key benchmark for the first time to sort of see where the ECCU jurisdictions are at. And it's great because what it does is it helps motivate policy change. And, you know, it's a big thing for countries, as I've seen with the Findex scores, you know, the last, 10 years or so, where they really look at them and they say, we use them for financial inclusion strategies, and we say, okay, here's where we're at, and here's where we would like to go. And so, you could attach policy along with to drive the change in the financial inclusion rates. I think it also, what we see today a little bit is a testament to the policies that have already been put in place at the national level by the ECCB. And so, again, hats off to everyone for the hard work done and the key collaboration with the private sector. I don't want to get ahead in terms of the findings, but what I want to talk about a little bit is, I think the survey shows key progress that's been done, and what I hope we can talk a little bit about today and can be sort of our homework, if we will, for the coming years, is also about what we would call financial sort of sector deepening, in the sense that it's great we see the inclusion rates we see. But as the findings, highlight, there's questions on the type of services, the quality of services that folks are using. So it's great that people are quote unquote included, but what will be quintessential and what the survey highlights is where we can all work together to sort of increase access to different types of services, from digital to credit. And so two key areas I wanted to just mention briefly with respect to the types of services is one in and around credit, and we'll talk a little bit today about access to credit. And so I just wanted to also note here the key work that the participating countries and the ECCB are doing in and around the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation to help extend formal business loans in the ECCU. As we all know, it's easy to get a consumer loan that maybe helps fix up your truck, if you're an electrician, but those loans aren't formal business loans. They're not as large as business loans. We know a lot of people borrow informally, but how do we get access to formal financial services? So the ECPCGC endeavor and the ECCU is a critical effort in that respect. And also the Digital Transformation Project itself, with the national authorities and the ECCB are doing to help promote access to digital payments. This is a key area, and the survey shed some light on the work that needs to continue being done in that space. And I also hope going forward, one of our key sort of tasks is looking at some of these questions that the survey will highlight on why folks don't have accounts and what we can do collectively to sort of reverse that, because it's critical that we increase the confidence in the financial sector. It's critical that people have the products and services that they need to meet their needs. It's critical, as the governor noted, on key issues around pricing. It's key that we can address issues in and around the requirements to get loans or bank accounts. And so what I'm most excited about the survey is not just to see where we are, but it shows us where we need to continue working together to sort of address the issues of access, but also deepening types of access. So again, congrats to all who participated in this, and thank you to everyone in advance for the work we will all undertake together as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith, for your intervention and your remarks. And with that, we come to the journey, and we will be presenting to you a video showing the journey from conceptualization to the results of the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and the OECS Commission are collaboratively committed to ensuring that the citizens and residents of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union have access to essential services and possess the knowledge and skills necessary to make informed financial decisions. To achieve this goal, the current situation had to be assessed. The Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey forms part of the Digital Financial Services component of the World Bank-funded Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, an exciting collaboration between the OECS Commission and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as a technical lead institution. The survey, which was started in August 2022, targeted individuals aged 18 and above in all 8 ECCB member countries: Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Christopher, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So what did the results tell us? What did the data show? First, let's get into some key terms: financial literacy and financial inclusion. The survey made use of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's definition of financial literacy as included in the 2022 OECD recommendation on financial literacy, which is a combination of financial awareness, knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviors necessary to make sound financial decisions and ultimately achieve individual financial well-being. As for financial inclusion, the World Bank describes it as individuals and businesses having access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. Transactions, payments, savings, credit, and insurance delivered in a responsible and sustainable way. Now to some of the results. The ECCU produced an overall financial literacy score of 12.2 out of 20. That's roughly 60%. Individual country results range from 11.7 to 13.1. In terms of financial inclusion, which measures an access to affordable financial services and products for individuals and businesses, the survey results indicate that a significant majority, 83.2% of individuals within the ECCU, have savings, investments, and retirement products. Almost 67% of ECCU residents stated they have financial goals. Anguilla scored highest at 81%, followed by St. Kitts and Nevis, 72.1%. Further analysis of these findings revealed distinct preferences among different age groups. Individuals aged 18 to 29 and 30 to 49 expressed the highest interest in buying a house and land or starting or growing a business as their primary financial goal. In contrast, those aged 50 and over prioritize the goal of becoming debt-free above all else. What about how people in the ECCU make and receive payments? 55% of respondents use only cash to make payments. This was highest in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with 84.5% of individuals confirming that they only use cash, whereas in Anguilla, only 1 in 5 use cash to make payments. 41.6% of individuals across the ECCU made 1 or more electronic payments in the last 12 months. Electronic payments include using a debit, credit, or prepaid card, or account transfer services. According to the data, it appears that the ECCU citizens and residents tend to prioritize short-term spending over saving, as reflected by a financial attitude score of 1.9 out of 4, equivalent to 47.6%. The participants in the survey were asked to provide their opinion on the statement, "I live for today." A strong agreement or just an agreement indicates a negative attitude towards spending money. Over half of the respondents indicated that they disagree, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree with this statement, thus showing positive financial attitude towards spending money. In terms of financial resilience, 43.9% of respondents would not be able to cover their current expenses for more than 3 months if they lost their main source of income. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, 37.8% of individuals in the ECCU were not able to cover their expenses for more than 3 months if they lost their main source of income. Over 56% were worried about paying their living expenses. So now that we have this data, what happens next? The comprehensive report and findings of the ECCU Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey are available for all to access. Our shared aim is to elevate our financial awareness and enhance our access to financial services and products. Together, we will craft a distinctive financial inclusion strategy tailored to our region, one that will bring positive change to our life.
Very good. So there you had, in 7 minutes, our journey. And that actually encapsulates the hard work of more than 12 months of this whole exercise, from survey design to survey execution, to the collection of the data, to the analysis of the results. And of course, apart from what you've just seen in the 7 minutes, we have the comprehensive report, which will be on the website, and you'll hear more about that as we continue. So the details of the survey, the results of the survey will be available. We'd like to thank Ms. Nikira Nichols for her work on the journey video. Truly appreciate it. So we are at the point now where undoubtedly persons have questions and even comments. You've gotten a taste of what the results were like. You've seen snapshots, the highlights of it. And what we hope to accomplish in this next session, which would be question and answer session, is to have a moderated sort of session. We will have Dr. Leah C. Haley and Mr. Edwin St. Catherine moderating this particular session, where we invite persons to ask their questions, get more details as they see fit, make any comments that they need to make. And so we will allow for question and answer at this point. We want to have it a little structured, so although we're inviting everyone to make their intervention, we'll try to start here at ECCB headquarters with the team that's here, and then we'll ask our representatives in the agency offices, starting from Anguilla, and we go alphabetically, and we'll ask at least 2 questions from each country as we wind down. So, any questions here?
If you have any questions, I want to text them to you.
Just to note that if anyone online has any questions as well, we have our team here at ECCB who will be able to read the questions out, and our team will then be able to respond. Questions? I saw you eagerly coming. Morning.
Okay, morning everyone. I'm Gail Gray Phillip from the University of the West Indies Global Campus. Very good work and interesting results. The governor mentioned that about 7,000 persons participated in the survey. I wanted to have an idea as to where were these persons from. I know it's from the OECS. How many from St. Kitts, Grenada, were most of them from St. Kitts, and a small portion from, what were the age group? I know you mentioned 18 years and older, and older, right? Were the majority of them 18 to 24? An idea of that occupation, education level of the participants, a little demographic information on the participants. Thanks.
Morning. Can you hear me? Yes, good morning. So what we did for the participants, so all member countries were represented. We had 500 persons from Anguilla and Montserrat and 1,000 from all the other member countries. So the independent countries, we had 1,000 persons being interviewed, and we had 500 for the dependent countries, right? In terms of the details, we would have used a stratified random sample, and it would have been based on the census information. Mr. St. Catherine can provide more details, but the demographics as it relates to age, etc., would have been based on our census data. So we would have tried to ensure that we had representation from each of these areas, because it was very important for us to do an analysis by demographics as well. And if Mr. St. Catherine has anything else to add.
Yes. Are you hearing me? Yes. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you, Mr. St. Catherine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Leah. Yes, so we did, as Leah explained, do 1,000 participants in all of the countries except Montserrat and Anguilla, where we did 500. Okay, of those 1,000, in those countries where we did 1,000, we would have interviewed persons using, weighting the sample by administrative district so that the larger administrative districts had more participants included. And within all of the administrative districts within a country where the sample was 1,000, we would have visited over 100 different communities. We would have also reflected in the sample the age and sex demographics of the country to ensure that the sample was well balanced and reflected the socioeconomic and demographic profile of the country. So all of the communities were ranked, okay, based on average household size, which tends to reflect very well the level of wealth of different areas in the country, and then we systematically selected the communities within within all strata. Okay, so this was the mechanism via which we obtained the 1,000 representative sample of participants for inclusion in the survey. So it is representative and it is self-weighting. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. I don't expect that we would move to a cashless society anytime soon, but I was definitely surprised that we're not a less cash-intensive society. Were we able to pinpoint specifically what contributed to the high use of cash, particularly in one of our member countries? Was it a matter of age demographics? Was it a matter of the nature of economic activities that take place in that territory? And generally throughout the ECCU. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Yes, so we did see for the cash, we had most of the cash we found were being used in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We also noted the rural areas tended to use more cash than other areas. And of course, the older generation are still using cash. So that was something that we would have picked up coming out of this survey. And it did vary across countries. We had in St. Kitts and Nevis and Dominica, they would use cash. We saw less than half of the persons using cash only to make payments, whereas in St. Vincent, we had over 84% using only cash to make payments.
Thank you. Let me just add to what Dr. Seheli just said. This is a historical observation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have to understand the peculiarities of the geography. It's a multi-island country, very limited ATM infrastructure, so people rely significantly on banks and, in some cases, credit unions. But that in a sense helps to make the point. We do not want our people to be disenfranchised or unable to do business because they do not have access to physical cash. What happens if the ATM breaks down? What happens if there's a closure of a bank or credit union for whatever? What do you do? And by the way, we saw this in the pandemic, where people were stranded because they were totally reliant on physical cash and did not have access to digital or electronic payments and means. So let me just be clear before I conclude this comment. The position of the central bank is that we do not wish to see the elimination of physical cash. I want you to hear me very carefully, everyone. We are not advocating the elimination of physical cash. We do believe there's strong economic and societal value to have a reduction in the physical use of cash. And a very obvious example is to protect the financial system or to harden the financial system against crime and to protect lives and livelihoods. I don't think I need to read and spell what I just said there. So you want to reduce, I've always said, you know, and that's why, for example, we were motivated to do Dcash, which is, by the way, payments, so part of financial inclusion is payments. Anywhere in the currency union, rural or urban, persons ought to be able to transact business with some comfort, both for the patron and the proprietor, that they will be safe. At whatever day or night they choose to operate in Grosile or in Tivoli or in Baroli or wherever, that's some across the currency union. And therefore, we need to see more digital means available. And finally, the customer gets to choose. Cost and convenience will drive that decision, whether they want to opt for physical or digital means. But they need to have the option to do both. That is freedom, that is choice, and that is what we want to give to our people. So when Nick spoke about deepening the financial system, those are the things, even where people have access, the access is not deep enough, it's not broad enough, it's limiting, and you want to have people have more choice. So that is peculiar to St. Vincent and Grenadines, but we see it across the currency union, where there is still a relatively high use of cash. The survey said 55%, I believe, in terms of general average, whereas in the case of St. Vincent and Grenadines, 85.
Madam Chair, just indulge me 1 second. In my enthusiasm to ask my question, I failed to commend all the parties involved on an excellent, excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Governor, for that intervention in the context it gave. We now invite questions from Anguilla. Well, as we wait on Anguilla, we will allow our colleague from UNCDF to ask a question.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I might be a tiny bit short for this mic. Yeah, I'm not.
No, that's it.
Perfect. First, we also want to commend the team collectively and provide a congratulations and thank you very much for the invitation for the UNCDF to join this commemorative event. And also our heartfelt congratulations to the ECCB, the OECS, and also to some of my old colleagues from the World Bank on this effort. I know, and we all know, especially those in the region, how challenging it can be to run a survey, to collect all of those answers, and to do that across all of the many islands with the different types of terrain, the challenges in travel and enumeration. And so I really do want to underscore how incredibly important this activity is and how difficult it probably was to achieve. And that these results are going to be incredibly powerful as the ECCU, along with some other countries in the region that are undertaking a similar effort to join the global statistics compared to Findex and the OECD around the world. And I also very much would like to reflect on the point from the OECS DG, Director General Jules, around the importance of having this evidence base to create a structure way forward. Following up on the previous question as well, and with regards to high cash flows, I did want to understand if there have been any initial insights on priority areas that might be linked to some policy actions. For instance, in terms of cash payments, if the survey showed any insights around which payment areas are for lower hanging fruits that can be converted into digital payments, wage payments, government payments, or perhaps paying of utility bills in cash, which might be an easier switch. And the second question I had was around savings. It seems like financial resilience is actually, although there are some areas that are lower and can be approved, that there are many responsible financial adults here across the ECCU. And I wanted to understand if there are a high percentage of people saving, especially saving in cash, which can be mobilized into an account to protect them from disaster, losing cash that way, or I don't think this is an issue here in St. Kitts, but theft, or crime with relation to some other islands. Thank you.
For your comments. And in terms of your questions as it relates to payments, we did find differences as it related to digital payments. For example, we saw for receiving salaries and wages in the ECCU, you did have some countries that did have more direct payments, whereas others were still getting cash from their work. We also saw that government payments, there were across the region differences as well. Some were still getting checks, some were still getting cash. Others, of course, were getting direct payments to their bank accounts. In terms of the payments for agricultural products, we did see that majority, over 90%, were getting cash. So the sector did show that majority were getting cash. In terms of utility payments, we still have some work there. We do see that most persons are still paying cash. They're not having, the electronic funds transfer. They're not taking advantage of that option. So that's an area there where we can see some work being done in terms of encouraging persons to, pay directly online. So we are seeing some differences across the region as well. I hope I answered your question.
Thanks, Leah. Let me just add that the survey also found that for people who are not operating a bank account, it's because in one instance, or one of the reasons, that it's too difficult to open a bank account. Another reason that they don't have anything to put in the bank account. But a principal reason is that it is too difficult. And on that score, I just want to be very clear what the position of the central bank is. We are now working with our financial institutions, licensed financial institutions, to ease the requirements to open a bank account without doing violence to our obligations to fight money laundering and financial crime. And we believe with a proper understanding of the law and a risk-based approach to financial integrity, we can accomplish that. So again, as part of financial inclusion, we don't want Helen to force people to go back under the mattress because they can't open a bank account or a credit union account. That defeats the purpose of the whole exercise. And so we recognize, to your question about a low-hanging fruit, that is an area where we believe we can and must do something quite urgently. And only last Friday, all of the regulators in the region, both the national regulators and the two regional, the securities regulator and the ECCB, were in discussion about this very issue. And of course, that work is being coordinated through our Financial Sector Supervision Department, led by Mr. Schreiber Keynes, and of course, Levaya Burton-Mark, who heads our AML CFP practice. So I want to shout out our colleagues as well. We think we can do something with that.
Thank you. And so we go back to our stakeholders in country. If there's anyone in Angola, if not, we move to Antigua and Barbuda.
Yes. Yes. Just trying to find out what demographic had the highest literacy rate and what could possibly do to get more people into that group.
I'm sorry, could you just restate?
What demographic had the highest literacy rate?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I was asking what demographic had the highest literacy score and what can be done to get more people into that group.
Yes, so we did see that persons who, high income earners, were the ones that were higher in terms of financial literacy. So out of the 20, they would have gotten 13.7 out of 20. We did also see that persons with the tertiary education, we saw increase in the tertiary education increased your financial literacy score. We saw persons who were employed also had a higher financial literacy compared to other persons who were unemployed or not looking for work. One of the interesting results we found was the internet access. Persons who had internet access versus persons who did not have internet access. We saw a very significant difference from 12.5 compared to the 10.3 for persons who had internet access versus no internet access. With gender, we did not see any differences. So in our region, gender disparities do not exist.
I have a question relative to the use of cash. I heard some figures overall and also for Anguilla and St. Vincent. Happy that the survey was able to provide those. Now, given our ongoing efforts for digital transformation and financial inclusion, can I ask what were the results for Antigua specifically? And also, were there any questions geared to understanding specifically what were the reasons for the level of usage of cash to inform our efforts going forward?
Antigua and Barbuda, we have a 52% rate of persons using only cash. We had persons around 13.2% using cash between 75% to 100. And then in terms of not using cash at all, just to mention that we have just 1.7%. So we do see Antigua, compared to some of the other countries, they were over 60%. So Antigua was not one of the largest ones. As I indicated, St. Vincent was, but Antigua is around 52%. Go through each? Sure. All right. So I'll go through the cash in particular. In terms of only cash, we have for Anguilla 20% using only cash. For Antigua and Barbuda, 52.2%. For the Commonwealth of Dominica, 49%. For Grenada, 63.7%. For Montserrat, 64.9%. For St. Kitts and Nevis, 32.2%. For St. Lucia, 63.7%. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 84.5%. And so on average for the ECCU, we have a 55.3% use of only cash. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now pivot to Dominica.
Two questions.
We will rotate through the countries again, but we just wanted to make sure that we give all of the countries an opportunity, at least in the first round, to say something. In the case of Dominica, one of our colleagues will be reading the questions. They're online.
We actually have questions from Montserrat. Dominica is joining virtually, so we're waiting for them to come through. We have several questions from Montserrat. They have some difficulties, so they are joining via Facebook so they can see. The first question is, a lot of people leave school without being taught financial literacy in any detail. What is the ECCB doing to ensure that financial literacy is part of the normal curriculum for schools and to create products that are easier for the average adult to understand? And that's one of 5 questions that I have from Montserrat. So what is the ECCB doing to ensure that financial literacy is part of the normal school curriculum and to create products that are easier for the average adult to understand?
So 2 things, advocacy and action. The first is that, as we've done today, and we've done repeatedly, I think you've heard me on this before, we are advocating for schools to take financial literacy as a core focus and for people to come out of school with being financially literate. You can't do 10, 12 years of schooling and can't manage a checkbook. There's something wrong with that picture. there's something wrong with that picture. You know, and instead of helping the parents, now the parents have to be helping the children. Something is wrong. By the way, the parents who have less schooling than the children in a lot of cases. Go figure. So advocacy is one. The second is action. We actually, through our mentorship schools, and we have a mentorship school in every country, we do mentorship with these sixth grade, students. So we give them exposure in financial issues, tips, tricks, tips, and so on, to guide them and to help them. And that's action. The problem is that it's not enough of us. Central Bank can't solve this alone, which is what the Director General of the OECS was making. I mean, we by ourselves can't solve this problem. We need a societal approach, all of society, fully built out ecosystem around which to support financial literacy and inclusion. And we're prepared to push, because we believe there's strong value, as we said earlier, in having people who are financially literate and resilient. And by the way, if they're not, they're coming to you, me, and the government. Just think about that. And if the government can't fund it, they're coming back to you, me, and fellow taxpayers. Just start to connect those dots. Start to connect those dots. And then you begin to realize, even if you are financially literate, you can't be satisfied with that. Because your brother, your sister, your family member, your community are not. And therefore, we have an obligation to help them so that we can all rise. Because that's what we want to see. I hope I helped with that question.
We have a second question. I think I'll do 3, and then we'll come back to Montserrat. All these questions are from 664 Connects in Montserrat. The second question: Montserrat is a very cash-based society, with most residents refusing to use modern payment systems. However, persons who use digital devices or services have consistently and significantly higher financial literacy, knowledge, behavior, and well-being scores. What is the ECCB doing to rectify this issue without passing all of the costs onto the consumer? And I repeat, Montserrat is a very cash-based society, with most residents refusing to use modern payment systems. However, persons who use digital devices or services have consistently and significantly higher financial literacy, knowledge, and well-being scores. What is the ECCB doing to rectify this issue without passing all of the costs onto the consumer?
I think the answer I just gave stands in terms of what we're doing. I think we have to spread the message and get more and more of our people financially literate. And then they make their choice. They make their choice. And again, like I said, cost and convenience will weigh in the choices that people make around those things. I'll leave it there. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment on that issue. I was particularly interested in some of the financial knowledge scores. And in particular, there's one that a lot of, especially persons involved in the investment field, use a lot, and that's compound interest. And across the region, in terms of just the understanding of compound interest, right? You saw, I don't think any country achieved a percentage of participants' understanding of compound interest above 50%. All right, so I don't know what is the view of the ECCB on that, but I think this is so fundamental to understanding investments and risk-taking and so on. And the whole issue also of understanding risk diversification also scored, generally under 50%, right? Risk diversification. So these are 2 points, I think, of weaknesses in particular that I saw, that I thought that needed some collaboration perhaps with the financial institutions to address. Thank you.
I think what we find is that, the examples I gave when I gave my opening remarks about these higher purchases and so on, I mean, in some cases it's lack of knowledge, but in other cases it's a poor attitude. So I don't know that 35%, I could never finish paying that loan. I mean, really. Or I don't care. I want it and I want it now. And I'm not worried about the prospects of paying that loan for the next 10 or X number of years. So remember what the survey measures: knowledge, attitude, and behavior. So in some cases, to my mind, even where people know they are choosing to do something quite deliberately, that's an attitudinal issue. And in other cases, they simply do not fully appreciate. Because when you speak to people sometimes around these things, well, nobody told me. We insisted a few years ago when I was chairing the non-bank regulator in Grenada that there be disclosure as a first step, but the truth is that if you don't know, a disclosure really doesn't really go very far. I could put on the product an effective interest rate of 35% per annum. And if I want this fridge, I want this fridge, and it doesn't matter whether I see 35 or 75, I'm having the fridge. Especially if I'm having family over for Christmas and it needs to come before the family arrives. That is how people are thinking. Now after Christmas is January and the rest of the next 10 years of your life, spending on a fridge, which probably deteriorates before you depreciate, before you finally pay off. Those are things that I don't think of people are getting. But we have to carry the message and get our children in particular. Because I believe just how our children are helping our parents, including me, with the digital tools, if they are taught, if they are converted, if they are, liberated when it comes to financial literacy, they can make a difference in their households and in their clubs and in their communities and with their friends. And strategically, that's why we have to focus there.
Thank you, Governor. We have one more question for now from Montserrat and then one from Anguilla. Then we'll move to Grenada directly through Zoom for them to pose. The third question from Montserrat is, was there any indication on loss of business due to non-use of digital payments? And this is coming from the chair of the Montserrat Business Council, Mr. Norman Cassell. Was there any indication on loss of business due to non-use of digital payments derived from the survey results?
No, we didn't have any information as it relates to that in the survey.
All right, and then from Anguilla, thank you. This question comes from the CEO of the National Commercial Bank of Anguilla, Ms. Charmaine Vaughan. The question is the ECCB going to share as part of the report country-specific data at a granular level, information with reference to debt levels of the average person within the ECCU? So is the ECCB going to share country-specific reports with granular data?
Yes, that is the intention. We have created a web page with the results, and we will have that information in shortly. So once you access the website and that particular web page, you will get some of the details, and then we will provide all of the tables and the charts specific to each country. So yes, that is part of the plan.
Let me just say, while the survey did not pick up any loss of business, I mean, anecdotally, I know certainly, and and I'm sure you could think of examples where a tourist comes and cannot buy a particular product because they don't have EC, they don't have cash. The tourist doesn't have cash and the person isn't prepared to transact in digital. That happens. That happens. Or it could be you or me. We don't have cash on us, we don't carry cash. We go in to do a business and the person says, sorry, only cash. That's a lost opportunity. So clearly, if we're looking for business and we're complaining that business is not good enough, what are we doing to position ourselves and our businesses to take advantage? Both for locals and tourists. That's certainly something we want to be thinking about. And I know there are issues about the machine and it's not working. That's why we brought other products to the market, which I won't go into now, to make it faster, safer, and cheaper, hint, hint, Dcash, so that we could, in fact, give you that opportunity to do business without it being very expensive so to do. Because I know that is an issue for small businesses in our region.
Yeah, just a point regarding digital financial literacy, because its level does impact the cost of the personal cost to the individual of the extent to which they are able to use digital facilities, and there were three key indicators that we looked at, and that is awareness of the dangers of using a public Wi-Fi, for example. And for example, in St. Vincent, the awareness level was about 34%, right? With respect to use of public Wi-Fi. The attention to website security is another one, right? There's a difference between using Amazon at one extreme and using, any fly-by-night website with lots of cookies to capture your financial information. And the other one is when we are interacting with websites, sometimes we ignore the terms and conditions. And these could adversely affect. And we do have indicators. As those two in particular, reading terms and conditions and using public Wi-Fi did not get scores that were particularly high. All right. So and people also were a little bit less than careful with things like sharing their PINs and their passwords to their their accounts and things of that nature. So a lot of these indicators are in there, and some of the countries have some work to do on those. Thank you.
We have a question from the agency office in Grenada, and that will come through Zoom.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I have a question and a comment. As it relates to I'm sure my colleague will also like to know, as it relates to the 63% savings by Grenadians. I would particularly want to know whether or not it's just a cultural issue, or whether there may be other issues that would affect that response, where 63% of persons say that they rather see than saving cash, have the cash, not savings, use cash, than operating a bank. One of the things I would like to highlight, and that adds into my question, is that I've seen that a lot of the times there are a lot of infrastructural issues that plays into persons' attitudes towards operating using a financial institution as opposed to just using their cash. ATMs not working, long lines at the banks, long lines at the credit union. And then it leads to my question now, as we've had a recent divesting of maybe three banks over the past few years. We've had some mergers of credit unions, meaning that the pool, the financial institutions are less and less every year. How do you think that affects persons' attitude towards using cash rather than approaching a bank? We know that most of the international banks have left our region. When I'm speaking Grenada, it may not be so for other parts. I think it's clear. They have left, leaving the banks that are behind to take up the slack. So in some cases, there's been a reduction in the quality of service, right? In some cases, there's been congestion in the system. How do you think that has affected persons' attitude towards using the financial institution as opposed to just using cash? I don't want to go in online. I don't want to go in no ATMs. ATMs are almost always never working, so I rather just use my cash. While I'm here, I just want to make a comment as relates to the issue of financial literacy. I believe that there needs to be a synergy between the private sector, the schools, and the financial and the ECB as it relates to internships, as it relates to mentorship programs. I recently did a training for some persons who recently left secondary school, and it's amazing. Sorry, not secondary school, tertiary level education, college, TAMCC, and so on. And it's amazing how little they know about financial responsibility, financial management, and getting into the work field, getting into that space. Some of the attitudes is, once they get that first paycheck, is to spend, right? When they get that first cash in their hand, is to spend. And I'm saying that we need to have some synergy between the private sector, open more spaces for persons to do internship, for persons to get an experience as what it means to stipend and what it means to work in that space before actually going into the workspace. I believe all private sector, all business should have that leeway where they can take at least one student and have them work, even if it's for 6 months, right? It's a beneficial relationship. The persons coming in, they will help the industry grow, they will help the business grow, and at the same time, they will get that idea of what it means to be in that space, what it means to get a stipend, and how to manage that money, what it means to manage whether it be checkbook, financial documents, and I believe that will help to their own personal financial management. So, just to conclude, so that you don't lose track of my question, how does the divesting of the banks, the mergers of the credit unions, and the somewhat infrastructural issues that we've been having with these institutions lead to persons rather saving or using cash, I keep saying saving, using cash, rather than approaching these financial institutions? Thank you.
I'm told I have to answer that one. Thank you for the question and the comment. Well, what I will say is that you are right that there are less options in several of our countries with the exit of the Canadian banks. And I do think, to some extent, there is the need for some adjustment. And some adjustment is going on amongst our people in terms of their business relationships or their relationship with their financial institutions. But I mean, I also have to, you tease the issue of is it cultural? And in some cases, it is cultural. If the lines are long, why do you want to queue up? Well, I know for some people, including some of our more senior people, going to the bank is a community experience. It's part of how you stay in touch with the community, and it's part of your whole wellness. So, if that is what it is, that is what it is. It don't matter then whether it's 2 or 3 hours, I suppose. But that is not true for many of us. We can't and don't want to sit or stand in a line for 2, 3 hours or an hour to do business. Therefore, exercise other options. So I think it goes both ways. It's not just what the banks are doing. By the way, on your comment about the lowering of customer service, that is an issue that we're taking with the banks. We have had that reports from several of our countries where customer service has dropped with the exit of the Canadian banks, and we are engaging our banks on this issue. We want to see customer service level, sustain high, retain, at a high level, or if not, to see it even exceed where it was before. But I do think there's an adjustment amongst our customers, and I do feel that there is also the need for some cultural shift. And again, education may assist with that. Because I don't know about you, but the day I had the capacity to pay my utility online, that's the day I stopped lining up to pay my utility bill. And I don't know anybody who seriously, except for community, for the need for community, wants to go and stand in a hall to pay a bill, which you could do online in the comfort of your home at any time of day or night. So there is some cultural challenge there, but education, I think, can overcome a lot of that, and we have to press forward together. I will say finally, to your comment about the internships, mentorships, the truth is that there are some of these programs going on in our countries. In Grenada, it's Imani. In St. Kitts, it's SEP. There are other names used in other countries where young people are going into businesses, whether it's government or private sector. I know people have their views about these programs, but the point is that there's on-the-job training. The issue is that there's not any attachment, in many cases, or not much, to financial wellness. And so to your point, these programs could be enhanced if there is a segment for financial wellness, so that you not only get a job, get experience, handle money, but you know how to handle money. Practice is only perfect if it's perfect practice. If you're doing the same bad thing every single day, you ever see a batsman getting out with the same shot every time? Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Then something is wrong with that net practice. I'll leave it there.
We have 2 questions from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which they've asked to be read. The first one is from an entrepreneur by the name of St. Clair Stapleton. His question is, when I was a little boy, the bank paid us to save, but now that I'm a big man, they are charging me exorbitant bank fees to save my money. I believe these exorbitant fees are a deterrent to doing business through the banking system. It is getting too costly. What is your view?
Unfortunately, that's not a survey question, so I am sort of in the middle to take the non-survey questions or the policy issues. The questioner is correct. I mean, the person posed the question. We are concerned about the proliferation of fees and charges. And what I will say on this is that the ECCB has determined, with support from the Monetary Council and the board, that we are going to set up an office for financial conduct. That work is being led in our bank by our Chief Director Policy, Ms. Tracy Poulias, and we believe that we have to rationalize that. There needs to be some balance, there needs to be some reasonableness. But when you get to a point where fees are costing you so that there's a negative interest rate for a small saver, that is a problem. And we don't want to see that. Because then again, we're sending the wrong message, creating a perverse incentive with respect to people coming into the system to bank and do business. And by the way, when somebody opens a bank account, it is not simply to save. That may be the starting point. But our ultimate expectation is that they will engage the system and they will get services. They will get financial counseling. They will make loans, access to credit. They will then be shown how they could get insurance, access to insurance. Then they may want to get other payments, electronic. So it's a range, a whole new world that opens up with a bank account. It's not simply having a bank account and putting some dollars in there. So we have to make that easier, which is what I spoke to earlier about the ease of opening a bank account. And it has to be reasonable in terms of fees. And I won't preempt what we will be saying on that, but I have to tell you, we are coming with some things where that is concerned. So you are right, that is an issue that we have to address as a region.
Thank you, Governor. The next question, it comes from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce in St. Vincent. It says, now that we have the results of the survey, which entity will champion and coordinate a strategy to aggressively move the needle in the right direction? In other words, what are the next steps?
Thank you for that question. The intention, as I indicated earlier, is to have a workshop here at ECCB first, in the first instance, where we'll come up with a framework to come up with a financial inclusion strategy. But we want to then engage the member countries. So we will have to do work with each member country, persons there that are stakeholders, the schools, the commercial banks, credit unions, etc., where we will fine-tune such a strategy and then identify champions and move the strategy forward. Thank you.
But just to say, we're looking for champions. We're looking for partners. We can't do this by ourselves. So if you feel interested in this issue, I would suggest you reach out to our country manager in our various member countries, indicate your interest, leave an email, so that we can join up our efforts and we can figure out how we can collaborate together. We have Ms. Nichols. Ms. Nichols was Carnival Queen 2 years ago, 2022. And one of the things she said in her platform was she wanted to champion financial literacy. So this is a young lady who wants to take this on, and obviously we're happy to collaborate with her. And we want to see more of our people, more of our young people, male and female, get involved in this space because we think there's a lot to be done, and we would be happy, ECCB, to partner with you as financial literacy ambassadors, financial inclusion ambassadors, and we think we need to use a variety of means. The spoken word, music, infographics, videos, a range of things to capture the imagination, but we got to have partners if we're going to hit scale and get a critical mass. And that's why, hopefully today, it piques your interest, starts to stimulate you. And if you know persons who may be interested in this area, including people in the diaspora, by the way, who may be able to assist, please, let's connect. Let's combine our efforts. Let's do it for the homeland. Let's do it for our region.
Thank you, Governor. We move now to Anguilla and then Antigua and Barbuda directly from the agency offices, and then we'll wrap up with 2 more questions from Montserrat. So to Anguilla, we had a question from the representative of the University of the West Indies. Okay, since they're having some difficulty, I'll read the question. Now that we have the results of the survey showing a preference for cash versus digital payments, what are the plans to roll out sensitization for digital payments for each country, including Dcash? So now that we have the results showing a preference for cash versus digital, what sensitization plans for each country specifically related to Dcash?
So in the past few months, we have been assembling in member countries teams to do both marketing of Dcash and merchant and acquisitions. Merchants and individuals. Merchants meaning the people who sell products and services, and the individuals, the purchasers, those of us who buy, consumers who purchase. So you need a wallet for the purchaser, you need a wallet for the vendor, the person who is selling. So what we have been doing is now putting in place in the member countries. So in Grenada, for example, it's Sonova. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's Camille Crichton. In Antigua and Barbuda, the name eludes me at the minute. In St. Kitts and Nevis, it's Quinn Martin. So I'm just calling some names. I'm not looking at a list. So we believe with those teams in country, we're now in a better position to really begin to get Dcash into the hands of our people, give them an understanding, and then get them to sign up and to use the product, use the service. I keep looking down because there's a monitor in front of me, so my apologies. I should be looking up into the cameras, but I'm looking down to see faces in the country offices. So my apologies for looking down rather than looking up. Karina, back to you.
Thank you, Governor. We'll move now to Antigua and Barbuda, where we have a question directly from a member of the audience.
Question, can I go? Yes, my question really relates to the intervention that we need to have that you spoke about, and more specifically, as it relates to the course content materials. So you spoke about the different sectors, groups, demographics that we have to target. For example, we have the schools that we need to start with. We have the business community who have their own needs. We also have families and individuals, and you spoke about the government and the civil service. Have we given some thought in terms of course content around these different groups that we need to intervene with? Because I think that's a critical component. Most recently, the Caribbean Development Bank had a financial literacy course, but it was targeted to the business community, but it was pitched at the level, I would say, at the level of an accountant. So my question is, can we give some consideration to have a codified course content targeted to these specific groups that we need to increase the capability and the skills and the knowledge in terms of financial literacy?
Well, I'll take that back. What we have done in the past certainly is the savings and investment courses that we have, put together, and we've had partners, whether it's private individuals, whether it's UWI. So a content that is appropriate, content appropriate. So obviously what accountants need is not what students in grade 6 need. And I think we have to work together on that. And when I mentioned the diaspora and I mentioned making the connections, there are people who have prepared content. And I think it's for us to join up and see what makes sense. And it's not just the content, but how the content is conveyed. Because again, we got to get some TikTok videos, let's be honest. In this day and age, it can't just be text. People reading as if they're going to school again to write an exam. It got to be TikTok that captures the imagination, that people see, and So I think it's a more creative way as well around how we not just generate or produce content, but how we actually distribute content. And I'm saying that ECCB has something that we've used, but I'm also acknowledging that that needs to be enhanced, and I think we need partners who can take it forward. We're central bankers. We're not specialists in this area. We have a passion for people and for the development of our region, but the truth is we do need partners to build this out. So I'm calling again for you to sign up for this assignment, and let's do it together.
Good morning. Just two quick questions. One is in terms of, I heard mention that this survey is the benchmark. What are the plans in terms of the frequency of the survey to see policy implications? And then second, is there any significant differences in terms of the insurance coverage among the countries and the savings profile among the countries that the survey uncovered? And just want to also commend ECCB and the Commission in terms of the work that has been done.
Right. So if I heard correctly, it's policy implications that flow from the survey and any discernible insights from savings and insurance, the use of insurance, if I heard you correctly. If we misunderstood, you could come back in Antigua and Barbuda, but I think that's what we heard.
Yeah, the first part is correct, but I asked about the frequency of the survey. If there are plans to have future surveys, how frequent, just to see the implications of the policies and interventions.
Right. You got it.
In terms of the insurance, I'll answer on that one. We did find that the majority of our ECCU households do hold, whether it's savings, investment, retirement products. But we did find in Montserrat, insurance products were very prevalent in that country, whereas in the other countries it wasn't used as much.
Frequency of survey?
Well, we just had our first. Director, would like to take that one.
Thanks. So the intention is to try it every 2 years, at least in the first instance. We recognize it's a huge undertaking, but if we have now developed some level of competency, so we'll try for every 2 years and, see how the results have changed. What we need to put in context, though, is having had this first one as our benchmark and having now as we go ahead in terms of developing a financial inclusion strategy, it might then determine the timing as well. So we are thinking first 2 years, but we'll reassess once we have that strategy up and going.
Yeah, what I would add, though, is I really want to commend all persons involved in doing this thing. Our team here at ECCB, working with World Bank, working with the project management team, working with Mr. St. Catherine and his team. One of my pet peeves about surveys and census in the region is that it takes too long to get the results. So I'm very pleased that in a few short months after completion of the final survey, which was done in Anguilla, here we are in September with our results and in a position to publish. Yes, you should applaud the team for that, so give them a bigger round of applause. What's the point of doing a survey if we don't get the results out? Perfect data a day late are useless. So it's important as a region that we have timely publication of results. So I want to big up the team. Kudos to you for that. Thank you.
Okay, Governor, we have two more questions and we'll wrap from Montserrat. The first one, although a lot of persons in the region have not used the financial tools provided by banks, they have demonstrated some financial literacy by saving informally. What do you think has caused this disconnect where people will save at home even if it offers no interest? And this comes from 664 Connects in Montserrat.
Okay, in terms of the disconnect, as was mentioned earlier, persons are still using cash. So, and then when we looked at persons who do have accounts and those who don't, the reasons why they don't have accounts, so there's that connection between having an account and then accessing digital use of, payments. So I think in terms of that, as we noted earlier, the issue of documentation as well as not having enough cash or funds in the banks, they're not able to have accounts in our financial institutions. So we do need to work on those areas, as the governor would have indicated.
Let me just add, it goes back to this issue of the time value of money. Because even sometimes in businesses, not so small, you find significant sums of cash on site for days, maybe even longer. And you ask yourself, well, why would a business be storing so much cash on site? The time value of money dictates that you, and an appreciation of that that you get your money into an interest-bearing account in the shortest possible time. By the way, it's the same issue we have with small business and billing. A small business would do some work for you and then take weeks or months to send you a bill. Some small businesses. That is, they are robbing themselves of cash flow. Cash flow is the life of any business, and it's particularly a small business. So for me, when I see that, it underscores the lack of an appreciation of the time value of money, the compounding of interest compounding, as Mr. St. Catherine said earlier. And that is a concern, because that business, if they could get that money in sooner, they're better off. They could potentially raise the profit profile of the business. So those are things that we see. And a lot of it is cultural, but they're wrong. They're hurting us financially. We ought to do better, and we must.
Our final question is, does the ECCB have any plans to conduct a financial literacy survey amongst youth? That's the final question for our Q&A. Does the ECCB have plans to conduct a similar survey amongst youth of the region?
Well, I want to turn to the experts. Leah, Dr. Saley, Mr. St. Catherine, any views on whether or not there's utility in pursuing that? Because youth, I take it would be, I guess, what, under 18? Yes. Yeah? I'm not sure, is that where they're going? I'm not sure where they're going with the question, but is there any particular value in having a separate survey for people under 18?
You need to be careful about that, because a lot of people that young are under parental supervision. So you would typically require consent from their parent for them to participate in this type of survey in particular, right? It's not that it can't be done. These things have been done, but the younger persons are, the more important it is to ensure that you have parental consent. I'm not sure, obviously, it is those people who become part of our older persons eventually, so their habits are being formed, and to the extent that you are able to assess what their knowledge, attitudes, and practices are with respect to financial instruments, you may be able to better cater for them in the future. You may also be able to better understand what they expect, given that they would be probably significantly more agile digitally than older persons. So, thank you.
Yes, I think it could be a useful exercise, particularly if we're doing financial education in the schools. It would be good to have a baseline first to see where we're at, what knowledge they have, and then, over time, as we continue to do some advocacy of financial literacy, it would be useful to see if that had any significance, even as the survey, as they get older, in the 18 to 29 bracket, we can look and see if we're seeing any changes in those results as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, anybody under 18 is considered a child. So I guess we're now talking about children rather than youth. Youth has a different definition in terms of the age cohort. But I agree with you, Dr. Saheli, that, I mean, once we start to ramp it up in the schools, some simplified survey, poll even, can be done with our students to ascertain where they're at and then what happens next in terms of how we target the specific curriculum to meet their needs. But that is certainly, again, something worth considering once we make the push as we're proposing for focus on schools. And by the way, let me just acknowledge the students who are actually in the building. I want to thank, I think that looks like ICC. Sorry? CFBC, my apologies. How could I? You graduated, CFBC. The tertiary, and Charles E. Mills, Sandy Point. So I'm happy to see students, all females, one male. Thank you, thank God. Thank God for you, young man. I was getting worried. You know what happened with graduation these days? 70% out of UWI, female. Same thing in terms of ECCB. When we look at our applications, most of the applicants are female. And by the way, our staff, 60% female, 40% male. So I'm happy to see the young man from Charles E. Mill, and of course the young ladies who have come from CFBC. And if we have any students in any other part of the currency union, thanks for coming in. Because we really want you to come out with that benefit. And the teachers who came, thanks for supporting them as well. Thank you. Karina, anything else?
Governor, we have one more question. No, sorry, Governor, that's it for question-wise. That's it. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your questions and your comments. Are there any final comments that anyone would like to raise? St. Kitts, anything? Oh, lovely.
Still morning, good. So good morning. I think we had some really, really great questions this morning. Most of them was surrounding the granularity of the data. So I was wondering if just the raw data would be shared, but also analysis. I know the governor mentioned it being a collective effort. So if the analysis is also shared, that would be great. Because I saw that there were some high savings, but then we saw some low scores in terms of citizens and residents of the ECCU being able to cover 3 months of expenses, which is pretty telling. High savings, but still can't cover 3 months of expenses. So just in looking at it, you saw like a key correlation or not so much. That's pretty much it. Actually, one more question. In terms of mentorship program, I know you mentioned not having as many persons in terms of continuing it. You mentioned it being 6th graders. I would love to know if you guys are thinking about expanding it and including high schoolers or revamping the program in any way.
Thank you, Queen Nichols. I think we should be looking at how we could scale up the program. We did 6th grade at ECCB because that was, we figured that was a pivotal group, that we could touch. But clearly, that's primary school. We need to see what we could be doing in high schools. And one of the easiest ways is if we equip colleagues, staff members, alumni, partners, and you go to your alma mater. You commit once a week, once a month, work out something with the school, and you go and you offer something. That, in terms of scale, that would go so much farther than where we're at now. Because we are limited with one school, and one class in that school. And then sometimes we do things that benefit beyond that, but typically our focus is the grade 6 in our mentorship school. So in Grenada, where I'm originally from, where we have 78 primary schools or whatever the number is, I can't recall now, it might be a little less. It's only one. That's not enough. Every country has multiple primary schools, so we do need all hands on deck. So your alma mater could be an opportunity for you to help in this regard. And I think it's good for us to look at a revamping of the program. By the way, I don't have the call. I just overexerted my voice. I got excited yesterday at church. And that's why I am a little hoarse. So just for those of you who are wondering, thanks for the prayers. I still appreciate the prayers. But I think it's a good time for us to look at the program again. So I'm glad you raised it. And maybe you could sit around the table with our team and help us figure the next steps on that. Thanks.
So thanks, everyone, for your feedback. We'll now invite Karina Somerset, one of our corporate relations officers here at ECCB, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Director. Hi, everyone. So it is my job here on behalf of the ECCB and our partners to extend thanks for all of your collaboration and involvement in today's proceedings. At the ECCB, we start our thanks with God because He is who gives us the ability to execute all our work and service to the region. I want to say thanks to our partners who are so pivotal in getting the survey done, the World Bank, the OECS Commission, and the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, UNCDF partners as well, and then our executing agency Data Point Solutions, Mr. Edwin St. Catherine, CEO. I give thanks to Ms. Nikira Nichols, our financial literacy partner, who came on short notice and was able to partner with us to produce that video outlining the journey that we had through the survey. We thank all the attendees here in person and at the agency offices throughout, which included representatives from the Ministries of Finance, the National Statistics Office, the Chambers of Industry and Commerce, representatives of financial institutions, the schools who governor, they wanted to just make sure you know that there were schools from all the different countries there. So Montserrat, SVG, Anguilla, Grenada, and of course here in St. Kitts and Nevis. To our colleagues from St. Lucia and Dominica who unfortunately were not able to join us in person at the agency offices, but were logged on virtually. So we give thanks to that. We thank the media for availing themselves of the invitation and for covering it across the region. We really do appreciate your support and we look forward to future collaboration as we share more results and analysis coming from the survey. I want to single out as well the ECCB team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ahead and after and during, particularly the RASTA, the Research, Statistics and Data Analytics Department, the Support Services Management Department, the Management Information Systems Department, and the Corporate Relations Department. I also want to thank the representatives of our educational institutions, particularly the University of the West Indies representatives who joined us from the different countries today. Finally, last but not least, I want to thank the people of the ECCU for their involvement. They responded, and because of their involvement, we have this data here as a starting point for the next step in the journey to improve financial literacy and inclusion throughout the ECCU. We look forward to further collaboration and reaching people in real ways that will impact their lives and ultimately result in positive improvement. Thank you again for joining us, and in case you're wondering why I'm clad this way, I say happy independence for St. Kitts and Nevis. We turn 40 tomorrow, so I'm clad in my national wear today. So for those who are here, nationals here and abroad, I just want to say happy independence to you. Thank you again for joining us for this regional event to launch the results of the Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey. As indicated, the results will be published on the ECCB's website and shared with you thereafter. Thank you.
Do the people of the ECCU have the information, skills, and tools they need to make good financial decisions? Can they access the financial tools and products that they need? These are some of the questions that the Financial Literacy and the Financial Inclusion Survey helped to answer.
The Financial Literacy and Financial Inclusion Survey forms part of the Digital Financial Services component of the World Bank-funded Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, an exciting collaboration between the OECS Commission and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as a technical lead institution. Through the survey, the partners were able to get real information about the financial behavior, attitudes, and knowledge of persons in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, and understand how aware they were of and how easily they could access financial products and services. The goal is to use the data collected from the survey to create a financial inclusion strategy that will help to transform citizens' awareness and access to financial products and services, and to measure progress towards financial literacy and inclusion. The OECS and the ECCB will work with member states and partners to get this done.
visit our website or scan the QR code for more information about the financial literacy and the financial inclusion survey.